Hey guys, it's Mason and this is Wrestling in the Dark, the only wrestling review and recap show brought to you by a blind fan, as far as I know. Welcome to the Monday show. This is my more free-form episode. Since the wrestling week hasn't properly got started yet, I want to take a look at a few of the more interesting things from last week and answer a couple of questions. What have I got to say today? Stick with me and find out. The first question or topic that I want to tackle for today is with the superstar shake-up firmly in the past. What's next for a few people, like AJ and Roman? So when it comes to AJ, that one I find a little bit of a difficult subject, because it all depends on what they want to do with Seth. Do they want to have him have a long reign to try and not compete with Lesnar, because they'll never have him have the title for that long, but do they want to establish him as a strong champion, have him defend it on Raw quite a bit and have the prestige of the championship built back up on Raw, or do they want to sort of hotshot the title around a bit, show that now it's back on Raw, anybody can pick up that Universal Championship and give a few people runs to give a few people that accolade under the belt of being Universal Champion. If they want to do the shorter title reign, then I think eventually AJ versus Rollins would be a really, really good feud. I think they could get some good mileage out of that. I don't really think they even need to turn one of them heel. I think it could just be a good sportsman like contest going over the Universal Championship. Other than Rollins, though, I'm really not sure who I would like to see him with. I'd quite like to see maybe Andrade or Aleister Black. I think those could be some really cool matches. Maybe if he could find a tag team partner like Bobby Roode, maybe go up against Aleister Black and Ricochet. It'd be good to see him mix it up and have a bit of a run with the tag belts. But other than that, I really do think Andrade could be a really good feud for him going forwards. They had those few matches on SmackDown a couple of months ago that everyone was really, really into, so a proper drawn out feud while AJ's waiting to be shot up into the main event scene. That could be a really good star-making feud for Andrade. As for Roman over on SmackDown, that one is an even weirder one, because where do you go with Roman? There's so many people you want to keep him away from. The reason that he's been moved from Raw is you want to keep him away from Rollins, etc., and maybe get him away from Drew and stuff like that. But you've moved him over to SmackDown, where you don't want to put him against Kofi Kingston, because Kofi's not going to come out of that match on top. If Kofi was to go over, Roman Kofi would be a pretty good feud. I think they could do again a bit of a respectful sort of one, just Roman going for the championship and Kofi being like, no, you're not going to take this off me, I've worked too hard for it. But I don't think that they would put Kofi over Roman. So you want to keep him away. So then you're left with the other championship, the IC championship, and you don't want him to take it off Balor, because Balor's it's already had that happen with him with Bobby Lashley, so you want to keep him away from him. Lars Sullivan could do with a few wins before he comes up against someone like Roman. Randy Orton doesn't really seem like it'll have any heat or any meaning behind it, so really, really, where do you go with Roman? There's no one really for him to team up with. It's going to be an interesting one, seeing where they go from it. I have no ideas, and I love sitting and thinking of fantasy booking ideas, but I have absolutely no clue what I would do with Roman here. I'm sorry to the person who asked that question, but I just don't know. Like I said, with AJ, I think you could put him in a number of situations. Like I said, he could be up in that main event scene. He could even team up with someone. He could go for the US belt and renew. I don't know what's going on with my voice. Renew that rivalry with Samoa Joe or something like that. There's plenty of angles, but I'm really not sure where you go with Roman. So that's going to be an interesting one to see where they go with that in the next few weeks or months. The next question is, who is your favourite commentator and who is your worst commentator, and what is the best thing a commentator can do and the worst thing? I like the mix here of tell me something positive and something negative. So let's start off with the positives. Nigel Mcguinness is definitely my favourite commentator throughout all of WWE, especially when he's paired up with Vic Joseph. When I watch it for NXT UK, I know I know that he works with him on 205 Live as well, but I haven't got around to watching that regularly yet. But on NXT UK, I really like those two as a team. I'm not sure whether I like him as much with Mauro Ranallo, because I do feel like their styles clash a little bit. Morrow's really over the top. He's really excited. He can't believe what's going on in the match. Oh my god. And then you have Nigel Mcguinness, who he does get excited, but for the most part, it just seems like he's sort of watching the match and telling you what happens. And I really, really like that about him. He's got this reserved style. Also, lots of knowledge of the business. He's really good at coming up with reasons why people are doing things, and also harkening back to his own career and saying what he would do in that situation. And I just really like that. It really, really draws me into the match. It really builds the drama of the match, and I just cannot get enough of Nigel Mcguinness. It's brilliant. As for the least favourite commentator, this one's a hard one, because my initial knee-jerk reaction is to say Corey Graves, because I find Corey really, really obnoxious, and I do find that half the time when I don't enjoy the commentary, it's got something to do with him. In the recent months, they've leaned really heavily on how into the women he is, how much he enjoys them, and I find it sort of Jerry the King Lawler levels of just stop it now. It's making me feel a little bit weird, Corey. But that is heel work, and he's trying to annoy me with that. Also, his bickering with Byron is just incessant and incredibly annoying when you can only view the product through that filter. It's like just listening to people bickering, and all you want to do is know what's going on in the match, and Corey and Byron are too busy going backwards and forwards, and then Tom Phillips is always fighting to try and call a little bit of the action. So I do think that Corey is probably my least favourite, but again, I think that's because of kayfabe, because I think it's because he's a heel. In terms of someone that just makes me go, ugh, and I just want to turn the TV off, Coachman. Jonathan Coachman, man, he drove me towards my break that I took from the main roster last year. And there was other elements to it, of course, the Brock having the championship again, a lot of the stuff going on with like Crown Jewel, etc., that was putting me off. But then just having Jonathan Coachman there, who just had no idea what he was talking about, would get confused in matches, was getting constantly ribbed by Cole and Graves just because of how stupid he was. His word of the hour that never went anywhere and never had any relevance. He was just, honestly, he made me miss Booker T. And that's coming from someone that, like, as much as I find Booker T incredibly entertaining, I don't particularly want him on commentary because I want to know what's going on, and if he's on commentary it's going to be a comedy routine, and as much as there is a place for that and I do enjoy it, I don't really want it. But Jonathan Coachman made me be like, oh, I'd have Booker T any day. So that's my least favourite commentator. My favourite thing that a commentator can do, is probably just being as really specific. One of the things that I love about Nigel Mcguinness is that he's got that knowledge of the business as coupled with knowing how to make things sound scientific. He's really good at explaining how a move hurts and why it hurts, why you'd want to apply it at this point of the match, what it does to your opponent, what it stops them from doing, how it's going to affect them later on in the match. And he never really seems like he gets too drawn into the match. He never stops watching. He never stops calling the action and just watches. He's always on it. He even calls moves when people are just going for something and it fails. You know, if they're in a submission hold and they're trying for a transition or a facial expression, just trying to escape or something like that, he'll call it even if it doesn't actually happen, and he'll even tell you how the person applying the submission, how they shut down the attempt, and I just love that sort of stuff. And as a huge fan of Bones, the TV show, whenever he gets all scientific and he's like, oh, he's kicking him in this ligament or that ligament, and that's gonna stop his leg from working, and I so scientific there from me. Really, considering that I'm talking about the fact that I love Nigel for that made me sound like I really, really don't know anything about the human body, which I don't. And yeah, I really, really love that when how he just gets drawn into it, but also just completely calls the action. He'll sit back and let Vic do his job when he needs to, but if there's something that needs to be called that he needs to interrupt Vic for, he'll do that too, and I really, really like that. And then my worst thing, the worst habit that the commentators have is, did you see that? Oh, how cool! What a maneuver! Oh, the impact on that! Oh, that sort of thing, it just drives me mad, because it happened at WrestleMania with the Tower of Doom spot in the SmackDown tag title match, as Ricochet did the roll through from the Tower of Doom. They were just like, oh, how cool was that? What a maneuver! And again with the Triple H entrance at WrestleMania, comes out as Mad Max, and they're just like, that was cool. And it's just like, that's not your job. Tell me what's going on. And that's really the thing that draws me out of it most. The thing is that I don't even think that is anything to do with not being able to see, because I love learning, and I've always wanted to learn the names of the moves, etc. So just say, for example, if I had never seen a Canadian destroyer, and then on TV someone pulled off a Canadian destroyer and the commentators just went, oh, what a maneuver, I would still be annoyed even if I could see, because I'd be like, that was a cool move that I've never seen before. I want to know like how to search that and look it up and find other people doing it and learn about the move. So that's it. Just really frustrates me when there's like those periods, especially when people fight over towards the commentators' desks and they're just like, I'm out of here, and then you get like 10-15 minutes for the rest of the match or whatever where there's just no commentary and you have no idea what's going on. And the very, very worst one is replays with no commentary, where when you're in that sort of situation where the commentators have had to scarper the way out of there, you sometimes get these replays of the action that's going on, and you can hear it's a replay because they do like the replay noise, but then there's no commentators there to tell you what's going on, and it's just so endlessly frustrating. So yeah, best commentator, Nigel Mcguinness. Least favourite commentator, Corey Graves or Coachman. The best habit is just in-depth calling of the action, and the worst habit is the opposite of that, is not calling the action at all. So that's my answer to that question. Next up, someone asked me, what are your thoughts on Kairi Sane and Asuka as a tag team? Paige came out on SmackDown last week and she said, I'm going to be bringing out a new tag team next week, being this week. And everyone was like, it's going to be the Sky Pirates. And they were half right. because this week she comes out and she brings out Kairi Sane and Asuka, not Kairi Sane and Io Shirai. And I'm not sure particularly what to think of it, really. I guess the knee-jerk reaction, just like the completely not thinking it through answer, is that they've just done that thing that they do where they stick the foreigners together. Just the same as that they've done with Rusev and Nakamura, and that they've done with countless teams in the past, like even with Drew and Cesaro and Sheamus and the League of Nations and all the examples from the past of them putting the foreigners together. But I don't know. If you look at it from a positive, trying to look at it from a positive perspective, they could be good friends backstage. I mean, there might be other people that know a little bit more than I do, but I don't know particularly if Kairi and Asuka had any previous history outside of the WWE. I don't know what the deal is there, and let's face it, there's not much backstage news that gets out about those stars, so we don't know what they're like backstage. They could be pretty good friends. They both have limited English skills, and they might feel a little bit more comfortable being around each other, so it might be a good thing for them. As well, you've got the option for Io to come and join them later on down the line, which is nice because that could be a nice little women's faction there. I'm sort of glad that they didn't bring Io Shirai up, because she needs a little bit more time in NXT, not for her talent or anything like that, but I just think she needs a little bit more exposure, a bit more time. Plus NXT needs her too, because with Kairi Sane gone and Shayna Baszler on a ticking clock on her way out, they need some strong names, some strong talent. So I'm really glad they didn't bring them both up. It should be interesting to see where they go with Kairi and Asuka as a team. Having them with Paige could be quite interesting, really. It'll be nice to see Paige back on TV. She's got a really individual style these days. She's got an individual attitude that she has now, and that should be pretty interesting to see where they go with that. The problem is that I really want that women's tag division to actually be something, and so it's good that they've got Asuka and Kairi together, because those are two phenomenal wrestlers, and with Paige there, you've got someone to connect to people who might not understand the two as much, or help them with promos, etc. But there aren't really many other teams that they can face now, other than like ones that they can randomly throw together. And I know Asuka and Kairi are a randomly thrown together one, but at least it's a high level one. It's not just like throwing together Naomi and Dana Brooke or something like that. It's just, I really don't know, with everything that's going on with Sasha at the minute, and Bayley now on SmackDown as a single star, the Riot Squad more or less split up. It's just going to be interesting to see where they go with these tag belts. It's good for Kairi to be on the main roster. I'm not just going to be like, oh, that's terrible that they've put them both together, but it's almost a wasted move in a way, because there's just, other than the Iconics, there's just no real women's teams left for them to face. So I'd be interested to see who you guys think that they should face, any women's teams that you think they could throw together, or any even fantasy booking wise, any female teams that are outside of WWE. Just let me know. I'm really interested, because I don't know who I would put against them now. Now that the dust has settled, what are my thoughts on the Viking experience? So, I was never really much for the War Raiders name in the first place, and I understand the arguments that people have got about not wanting a team with War in the name on the main roster, so the name change was necessary. I I have more of a problem with the fact that they're NXT champions than I had with the name change in general. It does sound very theme parky, like Universal Studios, the Viking experience. But this is the problem with specific gimmicks, because they've got that Viking-esque-ness to them. And they have those entrances that they've been having at takeovers, etc., etc. So you're limited. You're limited to what you can call them, because they can't be called something completely unrelated because they've got those elements to them. But Viking Experience is a little bit closer to the nose. Sean Ross Sapp from Fightful reported that the name change originally was set to be the Berserkers, and clearly someone nixed that because there's been the Berserker in the past. I don't think that would have been that much better, to be honest. I'd have been like, what, the Berserkers? I think the obvious one that would have really worked would have been Valhalla. I also think they could have gone with like some sort of final voyage type thing, because they could have had like the burning boat, all that sort of thing, like the imagery of sending your opponent off into the afterlife, etc., etc. I do think that what they should try and just do is lean towards, rather than them being the Viking experience themselves, is that they're making people experience what it was like to have Vikings around. Like, we are as brutal and as nasty as the Vikings were, and now you're going to know how people felt back in the day when the Vikings were doing their thing. And I do think, although I originally suggested it as a joke, now that they split the Riot Squad up, there's no reason not to put Sarah Logan with them. She's married to one of them. I think it was Roe, which I have no idea what Roe's name is now, and I'm not sure if he's even the one that is actually married to Sarah Logan, but I know one of them is, and you may as well just put them together. She already has that Viking vibe to her. Michael Cole's always banging on about it. It'd be a little bit pointless to have the Viking experience there and then not have someone there who has like the same gimmick. You'd have like two Viking things going on at the same time, so you may as well just smush them together, which could be pretty interesting, really. We haven't had like a two-man woman faction in a little while. It could be interesting to see where they go with that one. Yeah, I was amused by it at the time. I was slightly outraged more at the fact that they are tag champs in NXT at the minute. But other than that, it was a bit ridiculous. But I think the controversy for it died down pretty quickly, which I find hilarious, because everyone was just so on top of it. And I really genuinely don't think that they're dead in the water. I don't think that they're buried. I think eventually people will just get used to it and it'll just be what we call them. And I don't think they'll be buried, because if they'd let them do what they can do in the ring, from what I've seen of their matches, with the match with the Undisputed Era, and then their match with Black Magic at TakeOver New York, they can't be buried. They're just way too talented. So I don't think we need to worry about it. But let's all just agree to relax and not scream that people are buried quite so quickly. Still, though, the Viking experience, it is a pretty crap name, innit? And now it's time for the bit that I've been the most excited to talk about. I'm going to stray into an area that I haven't strewn into before. Let's talk a little bit of AEW, because Cody's opponent has been announced for Double or Nothing. I've been trying to keep up to date with these Double or Nothing episodes. I haven't seen all of them, but I've seen a few. But I did wait with bated breath all day on Saturday to see who Cody's opponent would be. Speculation has been running absolutely wild, and whilst it wasn't a particular shock because rumours about it had swirled for weeks and weeks, and there was rumours and news about this person's release from WWE, it's still a nice development. So let's get straight to it. It's been announced that at Double or Nothing, it will be Cody versus his brother Dustin Rhodes, and I really like that. I think that they've I think that they've done a fantastic job with Double or Nothing, the Road to Double or Nothing episode 13. It was just a 5-minute episode, and it was just Dustin hyping the match, cutting a promo, and it was it was really, really good. Dustin came in and he made a point of saying that this isn't a new beginning for him. He's done everything and that there is to do, and he did a really good job of it. And he said that if Cody wants to treat this as the last ride and he wants to bill it as one last ride, then fine. But it feels a little bit like he's trying to put him out to pasture, and he doesn't like that. And he goes on to talk about the family. He goes on to talk about the Rhodes family. Dusty Rhodes, Dustin Rhodes, and Cody. And he just sort of talks about the brotherly relationship that they have. And I really liked it because he talks about the fact that there's always been a rift between him and Cody that he doesn't particularly understand. He talks about the fact that he's always been proud of Cody, always told him that he's been proud of him, but Cody's never really said thank you, never really appreciated it. He said that Cody was born with a silver spoon in his mouth compared to how Dustin was brought up. And he was talking about the fact that Cody hasn't filled his shoes till yet, but he's starting to now with AEW, and I just thought it was a fantastic promo that really got me hyped for that Double or Nothing show. I've been looking forward to it anyway, and I was really looking forward in particular to seeing Cody again, because I enjoyed. I checked out All In a while back, and I enjoyed the Nick Aldis versus Cody match, so I was really looking forward to seeing who he faced. It's sort of a eating humble pie experience for me. I've been ragging on AEW for a little while now for signing people from the WWE, and the fact that whenever anyone's ready to leave, it's always this person, Dean Ambrose to AEW, Sasha Banks to AEW, and I swear it's just every person. The people just want them to go there, so I've been sort of ragging on them for that, taking the mick out of them, ribbing my friend Glenn for the fact that they're just another WCW, even though I don't particularly believe that at all. And I was sort of vocal about how I wasn't happy from a commentary standpoint that they've got Jim Ross, because I feel like that's going to date it for me. But I somehow don't feel like that with Dustin. It didn't feel like it was, gold dust coming out from WWE to come and face Cody. It really did feel like the man, Dustin Rhodes. And I love that this dynamic that he's got with Cody, where it's just a proper natural sibling rivalry that really could happen in real life. With the way that they've been brought up and the achievements that they've both had, and the way that their lives have gone, you can see why they would have a brotherly rivalry, and you can see why Cody would feel like he was sort of in Dustin's shadow, why he's been neglecting him and ignoring him, and now he's treating him like he's just this past it old man that like Dustin said, that he can put out to pasture. And it was just, it's really, really got me excited for it, because I think that they can get some really good mileage out of this. Obviously they're teasing that this won't just be the one-off, because at the end Dustin said, one last ride, or is it? And I would like to see him in AEW for a little bit. I'd like to see what they could do with just the Dustin character. Also, Beep Dust is my new favourite thing. He starts talking about how he never helped Cody with what I presume he meant was the Stardust gimmick, that was all Cody's thing and he did it himself and he was proud of him for it. But they were just beeping it out, just Beep Dust, and I think that's my new favourite thing now. It's just Beep Dust. I just can't wait for this, and I thought that it was a really spectacularly well done promo. I think that the really showing that they can tell different stories, and it should be interesting to see whether they end up feuding a little bit more, whether they end up eventually teaming up and having a little tag title run. There's all sorts of things that they can do, and it should be really interesting to see who comes out of that match on top and who comes out looking better morally too, because at the minute they've both got issues that they can raise with each other. They've both got motivations that aren't necessarily pure, that aren't necessarily evil. They've just got beef because they're brothers, and I really like that. So that's definitely got me far more excited for the Double or Nothing show. And with that, we've reached the end of the show. Those were my thoughts on some of the more interesting topics from the last week in wrestling. Let me know what you thought about these subjects in the comments down below, and if you have any questions for next week's episode, be sure just to leave me a comment down below in this comment section or in any of the videos that I'll have between now and Monday, and I'll try and answer them then. Honestly, I really want some feedback from people. I want some questions that I can answer, because this is a lot of fun, and I really want to get a discussion started. If you've liked what you've heard, remember to hit that like button for me, and if you want to stay up to date with all of my episodes, hit the subscribe button, hit the notify bell, and you'll never be left out of the loop when it comes to wrestling in the dark. Right guys, I'm off, and you should have a good one.